I woke up on the bathroom floor to see my English teacher leading a senior down the hall, and his eyes were completely dead. Wednesday. Had Cole Harper by the shoulders, and his eyes were completely dead. Opening my eyes, I found myself uncomfortably slumped against the stall door, a thumping pain in the back of my head. Prickly white light glared down at me. My memories were foggy. What was I doing before this? I unhooked the latch and pushed the door open. Clinical white hit my eyes, and I swallowed a groan. The girls' bathroom was too bright, a seemingly endless expanse of liminal white stretching above me. I blinked. Weren't there 5 stalls in the girls' bathroom? In the corner of my eye, a 6th stuck out at the very end of the row, bleeding into obscurity. Striding over to the mirror, I checked myself over, running my hands through my hair. I checked my phone. No service. Of course not. According to my lock screen, it was 2:12 in the afternoon. But, tipping my head back, the window above the stalls was pitch black. I checked my texts. 2 from Mom. I was mid-typing. I must have forgotten about texting her back. Mom. June, can you call me? Right now. I'd responded, or started to respond with, Hey Mom, I'm in the girls' bathroom. 3 ellipses popped up indicating she was typing, but a message never came through. I checked the time. 2:12 p.m. There was something strangely terrifying about the light in the bathroom, a sterile, clinical glare I couldn't seem to look away from. I'd never seen anything like it. As if the light was alive, buzzing, filling eerie silence. I left the girls' bathroom, pushing my way out into the hallway. But that wasn't the worst part. The lights were still on, a dim glow illuminating a line of lockers. Empty. Not even a janitor could unlock the door, which was what I was hoping for. I moved towards the exit doors at the end when shuffling footsteps startled me. I darted behind a block of lockers, sticking my head out. Come on, Cole, a voice hummed. We're almost there. Cole Harper, an upperclassman, appeared, shuffling down the hallway. I recognized his varsity jacket and thick, dark curls. He'd once strolled through school with a crap-eating grin on his face. Now he dragged himself along, arms limp at his sides, half-lidded eyes fixed on the oblivion ahead. Mrs. Wednesday, my English teacher, held him by the shoulders, gently guiding him down the corridor. Cole, I hissed, and his eyes briefly found mine. Before looking away, his jaw clenching. Cole, can you tell me again what I told you? Mrs. Wednesday was usually the embodiment of sunshine. Early 30s, always smiling. My friends and I used to laugh at her strict, prissy ponytail. Now, her hair lay loose on her shoulders. Her expression was dark. Her grip on him was tight, unrelenting. Cole, she whispered, repeat what I said. That everything is going to be okay. Cole's voice was an emotionless drone. He started forward again, tripping over himself, and she caught him quickly. That's right, the teacher hummed. I don't want to go in there. Cole's voice broke. He backed away, but the teacher's hands were firm on his shoulders. I can't. You'll feel better, Mrs. Wednesday said. I promise you. I watched them reach the end of the hallway. The teacher opened the doors to the auditorium and gently led Cole inside. Slipping out of my hiding place, my heart was thudding in my chest. What could our English teacher possibly want with Cole Harper? I followed, unable to stop myself, pressing my ear against the door. Voices. Multiple voices. I lurched back when a striking pain cut across the back of my head. June? The voice caught me off guard, slicing through me. I twisted around to find my best friend further down the corridor, sitting against her locker with her knees pulled to her chest. Ophelia. Trapped in this school, the danger was only just beginning. Willowy blonde hair strayed from her usual style. Ophelia sat with her chin resting on her knees, blinking rapidly at me, eye glitter speckled under her eye catching the light. I choked back a laugh. Wait, I knelt in front of her. I pretended not to see her flinch when I got closer, her lips parting. You got locked in too? I laughed. Did you wait for me? Fee frowned, but before she could speak, I couldn't stop myself. Did you know there's a weird after-school cult going on in the auditorium? I lowered my voice. Dude.
Cole Harper was just forced in there. It was significant other crazy. There are others. Mrs. Wednesday is part of it, and I think it's brainwashing. I only stopped talking, choking on my words, when I noticed the raw red tinge around my best friend's eyes, dried lines of liquid eyeliner tracing jagged paths down porcelain skin. Have you been crying? Ophelia grabbed her backpack, swiping angrily at her eyes. No, she whispered. Her eyes met mine, almost scrutinizing, before her lips curled into a small smile. It's Danny, she said, finally, sniffling. I broke up with him. Ophelia let out an explosive laugh that choked into a sob. I guess. I'm sorry, I said, and she nodded, seemingly distracted. Listen, June, I've got to go, okay? Ophelia smiled again and hugged me tight, sniffling into my shoulder. I should get out of here. Ophelia pulled away. I'm supposed to go to the auditorium, but I think I just want to go home. Well, can we go together? I spoke up. Maybe get Dairy Queen? Ophelia didn't turn back, her footsteps fading down the hallway. Bye, June, she called. Love you, girl. Wait! I only stopped when I saw the cavernous hole in the back of her head. Dried red staining the back of her shirt, something cruel sliced through me. And slowly, my hand found the back of my head, the source of my headache. June? Mrs. Wednesday's warm hand found my shoulder. Come with me. Up next. They say you should know something like the back of your hand, but this one, attached to my own arm, isn't mine. I was working on a project with my dad, cutting through the center of a board, when the blade hit a knot. Just like that, the wood flew forward, pulled my hand with it, and it went right under the saw. I remember the smell hitting me first, like singed hair or skin. I remember my dad shouting at me. They had to amputate just below the wrist. It took a long time to get used to it. A lot of pain, too. I had to teach myself to be left-hand dominant. The feelings of my hands still being there mostly went away after a few years. One morning last week, I woke up and my hand reached over to silence my phone alarm. I rubbed my eyes with a different hand. I realized the problem right then and shot up in bed. I stared wide-eyed at my hands. But that wasn't the worst part. You know that saying about knowing the back of your hands? I didn't know this hand. It was perfectly planted over the stump at the end of my right arm, as if there never even was an amputation there to begin with. No scars, no discoloration, nothing at all. I tested finger movements and found that with some concentration, I could move all 5. I tried to just accept the gift and not question it too much. This was a new opportunity for me, after all. I spent my day relearning to do my normal activities with both hands. After so long only really using my left hand for complex actions, it felt so strange having to use both. Putting on shoes, using my phone, buttoning my shirt, hell, even just pulling my pants up were all new and odd to me. But I became accustomed to it all fairly easily. It was during this day or so of rediscovery that I realized 2 oddities about my new hand. First of all, it smelled weird.
kind of oniony, or like a protein shake that was left out overnight. It wasn't that strong, but it was very clearly there, and it smelled bad. The smell permeated my nose and wouldn't leave. Faint, but present. The other thing was the temperature. It was warm. Really warm, actually. Much more so than the rest of my arm or body. It was hot to the touch, similar to a feverish forehead burning up. Weirdly enough, that didn't stop it from being real pale in color. Since I work from home and a lot of my workflow involves typing and Zoom meetings, I had to relearn to type with two hands. For a few days it was really hard, but I started to get the hang of it. I chose not to tell any of my coworkers about the arm thing just to avoid questions. It was during these days of constant typing that I found a new quirk in my hand. It would sometimes just type on its own. At first I thought it was just because I was still learning and making mistakes, but I realized that it was something else when it randomly started typing a few letters of gibberish once, while I was just resting my hand over the keys. I made no intention to move the fingers. They just did it somehow. After that, I really started to notice it. Fingers would twitch, bend, tap, poke, all sorts of tiny gestures on their own, all against my will. My miracle was becoming a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. It became really hard to ignore, but believe me, I tried to. I wanted this new hands to be a no-strings-attached situation. Then the smell started to get worse. I woke up one morning and nearly threw up from the shock of it. It was revolting. I pinched my nose and took a shower to try and get rid of the smell. While showering, my right hand reached up to the handle and jerked it hard. I was caught off guard by how blatant and large of a move it was, more than any it had done previously. The water nearly instantly became scalding hot, and I yelped out in pain. I jumped out of the shower as steam billowed out. The skin all over my head, shoulders, and chest stung bad. I turned the handle back to cold water, and I got back in to rinse down the sensitive skin. I looked down at my hand. It was pruning in the water. The veins in the wrist pulsated at an odd tempo. I felt it closely. It didn't match my heartbeat. The second real incident happened later that evening while I was cooking dinner. I tried my best to not use my right hand while doing anything that could endanger me, since I was still scared from that morning. Weirdly enough, the skin on that hand was still rough, pruny, and more pale than before. I was cutting a cucumber when it happened. The pale hand leaped out of my hoodie pocket and ripped the knife out of my left hand. It flew toward my head with shocking speed. I grabbed it by the blade in my left hand and stopped it just short of my forehead. The pale hand quickly loosened its grip, and I was left with my bleeding left hand clutching the knife. It clattered to the floor. For the next couple days, I decided to keep the hand taped up against my torso beneath a shirt and sweatshirt at all times. And for the time being, it worked. No incidents. But I noticed something else. Every time I went to change clothes or take a shower, I had to inspect my right hand and re-tape it down. The second time I did it, as I pulled the tape off the back of the hand, I heard an extra ripping sound. I saw red. The skin beneath the tape had come with it. I could see the pale tendons, red muscle, and even a milky white bone. I gagged. I bandaged it, but I knew deep down that it was only a temporary solution. It came more undone each time I tried to tape it down. The skin was starting to turn gray. I found 2 sticky black fingernails in my bed one morning. I decided that I couldn't keep doing the same thing. I was destroying myself. The smell was getting so much worse, too. The same evening I found the fingernails, I let the hand hang loose from my shirt sleeve. I just made sure to avoid anything that seemed dangerous. As I sat on the couch watching TV, the hand jolted. Just a small spasm. I looked down at it and saw the fingers begin to twitch. Suddenly, it shot into the air, wrapped its hot fingers around my neck with surprising strength, and squeezed. I coughed hard and grabbed its wrist with my left hand, but was unable to pull it away. I couldn't breathe. The strain on my throat was unbearable. My mind raced 1,000,000 miles a second. I resolved to do the one thing I had been thinking about for days, but dreading. I had no other choice now. I sprinted into the kitchen with fading vision. My lungs were choking out for air. I grabbed a steak knife and tried to steel myself. Bringing the knife up to my wrist, I began to saw away. Luckily, I felt nothing from the knife. However, each time the knife cut deeper, the grip tightened. I was close to blacking out. I felt hot liquid pour out and drip down both of my arms and neck as I cut more and more. I felt a hard vibration as the blade ran across the bone. I pressed harder. Just as I lost feeling in my legs, the knife sliced through the remaining skin of my wrist. The right hand fell from my neck, and I gasped for air. Both me and the hand collapsed onto the ground. As I filled my lungs with sweet air and grasped at my bruised throat, I saw the hand crawl away on bleeding fingers. It disappeared around the corner. I rushed to put my arm under running water. The remaining decayed tendons and flesh fell away, and I was left with the same stump that I had known for the past 4 years. There was no bleeding coming from me. I searched for hours that night, but couldn't locate the hand. It was nowhere to be seen.
I scarcely slept that night. I tossed and turned, laying there for hours before I finally drifted into an uneasy sleep. I awoke to the sound of steps in my room. I heard the closet door open. My bloodshot eyes easily found the source. A man, exceedingly pale, only dressed in pants and socks, stood in front of the closet, his hands running through my shirts, back turned to me. His hair, wet and tangled, was the same color as mine. He only had a right hand, pink and wrinkled, the nails absent. The left arm ended in a stump just before the wrist. Adrenaline spiked through my body, and I jumped out of bed, shouting at the man. He turned toward me. His expression was blank. He looked just like me. I tried to race to the door, but he grabbed my hair and jerked me backwards before I could. I fell backwards, and he pinned me down with incredible force. He dragged me over to the closet, threw me in, and shut the doors. By the time I was able to push the door, it was already jammed shut. I screamed and pounded at it, but it wouldn't budge. I heard the bedroom door shut. He was gone. I sat there for what must have been hours. After a long time, the door finally creaked and snapped. It opened. My phone was gone. My shoes were gone. My car was gone, too. It was 7 p.m. He was still gone. I had no clue what he was doing. I grabbed my laptop and have spent my time typing this out. If you find him, stay away. It's not me. My right hand is gone, not my left hand. Please call the police. Help me. Up next, the creature pretending to be my friend Amy told me the real one was in a cage of briars. Inside, the air smelled of salt and vinegar chips, cheap vanilla candles, and the electric buzz of teenage energy. Anna, Missy, and Danny were sprawled across a fortress of sleeping bags and mismatched pillows. It had been 4 hours, and they had been the picture of normalcy, scrolling through TikTok, debating which senior had the best hair, and shrieking with laughter. But as the clock neared midnight,
the mood shifted. The laughter grew thinner, and the shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch. "Okay, you guys," Danny said, hugging a plush velvet pillow. "No more urban legends about hitchhikers. I actually have to drive home tomorrow." "My turn," Amy said quietly. She was sitting cross-legged in the center of the circle. The flickering candlelight caught the amber in her eyes, making them look oddly glass-like. Amy was the quiet friend, the one who listened more than she spoke, the one who always seemed to be observing the world from a slight distance. But the story she was about to tell wasn't just fiction. And then it got weird. "A long time ago," Amy began, her voice dropping into a melodic, hypnotic cadence, "there was a young girl who believed in fairies more than anyone else in the world. She didn't see them as wings and glitter. She saw them as they really were, ancient, hungry, and powerful." Anna rolled her eyes, though she tucked her feet deeper into her sleeping bag. "Is this a Disney story, Amy?" Anna said. Amy didn't blink. She continued her story and said, "One day, her belief caught the attention of some real fairies. They don't like being noticed, but they love being worshipped. They decided to pay her a visit. They lured her into the woods behind her house with the sound of a silver bell and the smell of crushed violets. She followed the trail, stepped over a ring of mushrooms, and she was never seen or heard from again." The room went still. The wind howled outside, rattling the window pane in its frame. "What the girl didn't know," Amy continued, her gaze fixed on the center of the room, "was that those fairies were changelings. They steal human children to bolster their own dying numbers, and they leave a mimic behind. A hollow shell made of bark, shadow, and old magic that looks, sounds, and bleeds just like the original child." Missy let out a nervous snort. "Jeez, Amy, you've been reading too much dark fantasy. You almost had me for a second," Missy said. Anna and Danny joined in, the tension breaking with a wave of forced giggles. "Seriously, that's a bit much for a Friday night," Anna laughed. "How do you even come up with this stuff? You have a crazy imagination." Amy didn't laugh. She didn't even smile. She just watched them, her eyes wide and unblinking, until their laughter withered into an uncomfortable silence. They thought it was a game, but their lives were at stake. "How do you know it's true?" Danny whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "How can you be so sure about the mimic?" Their safe sleepover was about to become a living nightmare. Amy leaned forward. The candlelight died down into a tiny, glowing ember, casting long, distorted shadows against the walls. "I know," Amy whispered, "because I'm the changeling who replaced that girl." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Anna pulled her covers up to her chin. Her face had turned pale. "That's not funny, Amy. Stop it," Anna said. "The real Amy is in a cage of briars," the girl said, her voice now sounding strangely metallic, like two stones grinding together. "She's been there for 10 years. She doesn't scream anymore. She just stares at the sky that never changes color." "Amy, cut it out!" Missy shouted, scrambling to stand up. Unfortunately, as Missy reached for the light switch, she realized that she couldn't move. None of them could. It was as if the air had turned into setting cement. From the shadows beneath Amy's bed, and from the dark recesses of the walk-in closet, things began to crawl. They looked like teenagers, vaguely. Their limbs were too long, their skin the color of wet parchment, and their eyes were nothing but hollow pits of moonlight. "I didn't invite you here for a party," the creature inhabiting Amy's body said, rising slowly. Her spine cracked with the sound of breaking dry wood. "We need more children. The hive is empty. I needed 3 more sisters to fill the gaps in the circle. Danny tried to scream, but only a dry wheeze escaped her throat. The shadows, the things that were meant to replace them, crept closer, reaching out with fingers that felt like cold, damp earth. One by one, the girls were dragged into the darkness of the closet. There were no splashes of blood, no sounds of a struggle, only a soft, shimmering ripple in the air as they were pulled across the veil into a dimension of eternal twilight and briar cages. A moment later, the room was silent. The door creaked open. Amy's mother walked in, a pleasant smile on her face, carrying a tray with 4 steaming mugs of cocoa and a plate of cookies. "I thought you girls might be getting hungry," she said warmly. On the floor, 4 girls sat in a circle. "Thanks, Mom," the girl who looked like Amy said. She took a mug, her smile stretching just a fraction too wide, showing teeth that were slightly too sharp. Anna, Missy, and Danny looked up. They looked perfect. Their hair was right, their clothes were right, and they even had the same youthful glow. But as they took the cookies, they all looked at the mother with identical, predatory grins, eyes gleaming with a cold, ancient hunger that didn't belong to the human world. "We're having a wonderful time," the thing playing Missy said, her voice a perfect mimicry of the girl who was now gone forever. The mother beamed, unaware that she was standing in a room full of monsters, and she closed the door on the last of the light. Up next, my dog Leo wasn't a stray. He was a sentry, waiting for something to follow me home. I now realize he was waiting for something to follow me home. I live alone and work long shifts, and most days I am too drained to do anything but sit on the couch and scroll until I fall asleep. I figured a dog might help. The shelter staff told me he wasn't really a stray, more like a regular who had been hanging around the same neighborhood for years. Shop owners knew him, and one worker joked he knew the area better than the residents. The weird part was that everyone said the same thing. He just sits there. He would stay on the same corner for hours, watching cars and people like he was waiting for someone. He did not bark or beg, and he did not approach anyone unless they approached him first. At home, he was too easy. Sirens did not bother him, and he did not even react when someone knocked on the door. The only thing that stood out was catching him staring into empty corners of the apartment. Not like a dog hearing something, but like he was watching something. The night everything started, I woke up because the television screen went black. The floor lamp dimmed, then flickered back to normal. Then I heard something slide across the floor. But that wasn't the worst part. Leo was already standing at the door, staring. There was a flyer on the floor just inside my apartment. I live on the 3rd floor with no open windows, and I am sure I locked the door. The flyer was for Happy Tail's Doggy Daycare. It was thick, glossy paper. I checked the hallway, but there were no footsteps. It advertised a free temperament test and 1 free day of daycare. I called the next day, and they picked up on the first ring. The woman on the phone sounded overly excited. We booked an appointment for Saturday. I drove to the address on a road I take all the time, but I had never noticed the building before. Inside looked like a staged indoor park. The woman at the desk smiled and looked down at Leo. "Hi, Leo," she said. I froze because I had not said his name. Another worker took him for the test, and when I came back, 4 employees were behind the desk, all smiling the exact same way. Leo ran straight to me, dragging the worker behind him like he could not get away fast enough. On the drive home, Leo did not look out the window. That night, I woke up to barking. Leo was standing in the hallway, teeth bared, staring at nothing. The apartment did not feel empty anymore. Whatever had followed us home, Leo had been waiting for it. Up next, when I found my boyfriend Alex in that house, he was on all 4s, covered in blood, and he barked at me. I was already in a bad mood.
My boyfriend, Alex, wasn't answering his phone, and our last conversation had been a heated argument over his lack of spice. I felt guilty. He had declined my offer to try bondage, and being drunk and frustrated, I'd yelled at him. "You don't think it's working because I don't want to have wild sex every night?" he'd asked, hurt bleeding into his voice. He was everything I wanted, attractive and kind. I just wanted that little bit more from him. I'd texted an apology 10 seconds later, but he'd ignored it. Nora leaned closer, her breath grazing my ear. "It was dark, so I couldn't see perfectly, but I definitely clocked you two. The collar and leash? Babe, you were walking your man in the park and didn't think I'd see?" I almost choked. "What are you talking about?" I hissed. I hadn't seen Alex for nearly a week. Nora's eyes widened. "Wait, that wasn't you? Maybe he found someone else to satisfy those filthy kinks." But that wasn't the worst part. I texted Alex again, my hands clammy. To my surprise, the text appeared as delivered. Right in front of me, another girl's bag vibrated. But the truth was far more disturbing than a simple affair. I texted him again, feeling sick to my stomach. "Alex?" Another vibration. The girl, Polly, grabbed her bag and shoved it under the table. "Ew," Nora hummed. "That's gross." She pointed to Polly. "She lost her golden retriever, Luna, a week ago when the poor baby was hit by a car. If she's replaced her pup with your boyfriend, that is beyond weird. You should slap her. Also, dump him. If he's that freaky, the least he could have done was tell you, not find a grieving woman to play walkies." Nora typed an address into my phone. I left class early, my heart in my throat. I jumped in an Uber and headed to the house. The gate was locked, so I vaulted over it and pounded on the door. "Alex, open the door! I know you're here!" The response was a human-like bark. "Arf!" My stomach turned. "Are you serious right now?" I yelled. He barked again, louder, growling. I pushed the door open and found my boyfriend on his knees, staring at me with wide, vacant eyes and a fixed grin. He was filthy, his clothes glued to him, hair a sweaty mess. "Alex." I dropped to my knees, my hands finding the collar choking him. I reached for my phone to call the police, but he butted my head, licking my face. I realized I'd left my phone in the Uber. As I pushed his hair back, I realized it wasn't sweat on his forehead. It was blood. It was everywhere. Deep red stained his collar, his socks, and his jeans. He curled up in my lap, whimpering. His fingernails were bloodied from scratching. "Alex," I whispered, "what did she do?" He didn't respond, instead skulking away on his hands and knees, dragging himself across the floor. I ran upstairs to find a phone. The bathroom door was smeared with red. I pushed it open and saw the bathtub soaked in blood. Sitting in the middle of a pool of dried, coagulated goo was a bulging mass of gray and pink. I screamed, but then gentle hands wrapped around my waist. "I didn't want another dog," Polly whispered from behind me. Alex peeked from behind her, whining and butting her legs. She swung a bright pink collar back and forth with a smile. "Now, who's a good girl?"